Now, I'm sure most of you have heard that the Philippines has decided to close their borders to foreign tourists. This was just a couple of days after announcing they were going to reopen to foreign tourists from green list countries. Just as things were looking at going in the right direction, and they were set to reopen to those green list countries on the 1st of December, we then get this from the Presidential Communications Operations Office. Now, this was hot on the heels of the discovery of the new coronavirus variation, Omicron. Now, as we scroll down, we're not going to read all of this, but we'll go to the important part of this for a lot of you foreign guys out there who are looking to go to the Philippines to be with your girlfriend or your wives. And some of you may have been getting rather excited, as it did seem it was becoming more of a possibility. Now, I'll read this bit in just a second, but I'm also going to tell you why this new coronavirus variation, Omicron, may not be as bad as it sounds. It could actually be a saving grace for a lot of us, especially for those who are vaccinated, and I'll tell you why shortly. And I'll also show you what some experts have to say on this as to why countries like the Philippines and other countries, and almost like they're panicking when they heard about this new variation. Of course, this variation is much more highly contagious, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to put a lot more of us in hospital or make us even all that sick, as you'll see shortly. Now, down here, the IATF likewise approved a temporary suspension of testing and quarantine protocols for countries, jurisdictions, and territories classified as green, effective immediately until December 15, 2021. So, as usual, they're just doing it in little increments of 2 weeks at a time, and then they review. Now, I sort of understand why they want to get more information on this, but they're not looking at the early information from South Africa around what it really looks like is going to happen with this new variant. It goes on to say, except for countries classified as red, the testing and quarantine protocols for all inbound international travellers in all ports of entry shall comply with testing and quarantine protocols for yellow list countries. On the other hand, arriving passengers coming from green list countries, territories, jurisdictions who arrive prior to November 28, 2021 may still follow quarantine protocols assigned to their country of origin upon the date of their arrival. Now, as I say, it seems like countries like the Philippines and several other countries have acted very quickly about this because they're quite scared of it, because it's highly contagious, much more contagious than the Delta variant. But for once on this channel, I just want to show you what the experts are actually saying about this and why it may be hasty that the Philippines has closed their borders again, and why Omicron could actually be our saving grace worldwide in our battle against COVID-19. Now, here in this interview is what Nick Coatsworth, who's an infectious disease expert here in Australia, has to say about Omicron new variant.
We're joined now by infectious diseases specialist Dr. Nick Coatsworth from Canberra. Nick, good morning to you. How worried are you about Omicron?
Probably a little less worried, Sylvia. I definitely don't think we should be waking up to any sort of panic. This thing is only 72 hours old. The Australian government's taken some judicious but measured responses in terms of closure of international flights from Southern Africa. But, you know, there's a lot we need to find out. And I don't think there's any strong evidence at the moment, apart from the fact that it's got 30 mutations, that those mutations are going to have the sort of negative effect that we think they would, that the risk that they will. Yeah.
So there are only about 150 cases identified so far around the world. What do we know? What do we know for sure about Omicron at this point?
We know for sure that it's got 30 mutations on the spike protein at the area where the spike protein actually binds to your lung cells and gets into your body. And that's the concern, because that's also the place where the antibodies that you make from the vaccine act as well. So that on face value is concerning, but then you have to translate that into what happens in real life. And as you say, there's really too few cases at the moment. In fact, the South African Ministry of Health said that most cases have been mild. So there's also some positive news on the horizon as well.
Now, if we go over to Dr. John Campbell's YouTube channel, now this guy, if you haven't checked his channel out, then if you want solid information and objective information, this guy is the one to go and listen to. And that's backed up by the guy who has over 1.5 million subscribers. But what he will say here in this video, I'm not going to show it all, it's 24 minutes long. I'll just show you a couple little snippets, but I will put his link in the description below for those that want to see the full interview. But what he does say here pretty much is in line with what Dr. Coatsworth was saying. So let's have a quick look here.
In other words, there's been quite a lot of concern expressed about this Omicron variant. Let's try and get to some objectivity about this. Now, I've got a lot of information about it. I think I've summarized what we know so far. We want to think about the people in the world that know most about this are the doctors that have actually treated the variant so far. And there's 2 of these in South Africa. So these are the ones to get to. Now, this is Dr. Angelique Cortez, South African Medical Association. I think she's the boss of that. Also a practicing clinician doctor in South Africa, first to raise the alarm on the new Omicron variant. So she's in an ideal position to comment. Direct quotes, this is a storm in a teacup. Good. Why everyone up in arms about this, she's saying. So far, we have so far what we have seen is very mild cases. Of course, she's actually treated these cases in South Africa. Cases still relatively low in South Africa, but picking up quickly. For now, it's extremely mild cases that we are seeing. Again, direct quote from Dr. Cortez. Looking at the mildness of these symptoms, I think it's been missed in other countries. So basically, she's saying these are mild, very mild cases that they're seeing. Headache does seem to be a feature. But the good news is the infections that they're seeing in the vaccinated are very mild. This is the report from the clinicians in South Africa. So it's looking like the South Africa experience is saying that you get mild disease if you've had 2 doses of vaccines, very, very mild disease in terms of probability. Greater risk if you've had 1 vaccine. And if you've had no vaccines at all, then I'm afraid it looks like you are at risk from Omicron. Now, I don't like, we've interviewed people who've had vaccine side effects and all sorts of problems. But it looks like the Omicron variant probably has shifted the risk-benefit analysis for vaccination. Dr. Cortez did say they're going to know all this for sure in a couple of weeks.
So there it is from a couple of people who know what they're talking about, and not just some YouTuber like myself putting my opinion out there. It does seem like the Philippines and other countries have certainly overreacted. As soon as they found out that it spreads 5 times faster, well, that set the alarm bells off for them, and they didn't look any further around the information of what's happening in regards to severe illness or mild illness with this variant, whether or not many people are landing themselves in hospital, and if they are, have they been vaccinated? So clearly, these 2 guys have given you very similar stories around this and saying that whilst they need to be watching it, there is no need for panic or concern at this time. So I hope the Philippines reevaluates this in 2 weeks' time, because they say in the middle of December is when they're going to reevaluate this. And hopefully they'll see sense and they'll put the green lists back in place. And they might even add a few other countries that should be on there. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. USA, Canada, Australia, UK, and a few others. Let's hope. Now, the reason I say this variant may not be such a bad thing is because if people don't get as sick with it as what they did with the Delta variant, but this variant becomes a dominant virus of the world, which it looks like it's doing, it's 5 times more contagious than the Delta variant, yet the early indications may be, and are certainly looking that way, that people who are fully vaccinated are certainly not getting very sick at all. In fact, most of them are just getting mild headaches. So, in a sense, this variant will push the Delta out of the way, which was a much more severe virus than this new one, even though it wasn't spread as easily. But we don't know for sure yet. That information will come to hand in the next few weeks, I'm sure, as the experts were saying. So we wait for more information. And let's keep our fingers crossed that this variant will be a game changer for all of us around the world and for us getting back into the Philippines very quickly. Anyway, guys, I don't want to get into a whole debate on this, whether or not you believe vaccinations are good and bad, and turn into a big fight with everybody on here. But I did feel that it was important to share this because I, like you, am rather frustrated about the Philippines turning around and reneging on their deal of reopening. Yes, they had some reason with the discovery of this new variant, but clearly, in my view, they've panicked. And look, even when they do reopen, would I go out and buy a plane ticket right now? Not on your life. We've seen what can happen in the space of a couple of days with the Philippines. It's sad, I know, and I really like to give good news on this channel, and I nearly wasn't going to do this video, but I thought, no, I owe it to you guys out there to let you know what's happening. I'm sure many of you already knew this, but there might be some that don't. And I always try and make this channel as balanced as possible. So here's that video, which is rather disappointing for many. Even if they do reopen the borders to foreign tourists come the middle of December, really, I'd be thinking hard whether I'd be going straight away or not. I know many of you guys want to go over there, that you've got girlfriends and wives, but really stop and think on this, because I wonder how many people started buying aeroplane tickets when it was announced they were going to open on the 1st of December to foreign tourists from green list countries. And I wonder how many guys were going from yellow list countries to the green list countries to stay there for 14 days so they could get into the Philippines. Well, all those people have paid their good money on aeroplane tickets. So I hope for their sake they're able to recover their money somehow, or at least get some credits on their flights. And that's the problem we face, even if the Philippines do say, yes, we're reopening again to foreign tourists come the middle of December. Personally, I wouldn't be going for several months. In fact, I don't plan on going there until the end of 2022 or possibly early 2023. I want to see all this settle down, let the rules be in place for some time so they know what's going on, and also we know what's going on so there's no problems. Anyway, guys, I wish it could have been better news, but it is what it is. And we wait to hear more from the Philippines government in due course. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.